Hello! Welcome back to another Bright Lights Moment. I hope these have been helpful to you over the past few weeks. One of the hardest parts of the Christian life is to be a servant. But Jesus instructs us to follow in His footsteps as a servant. John 13, 3-5 says, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into His hands, and that He was come from God and went to God, He rises from supper, and laid aside His garments, and took a towel, and girded Himself. After that He poureth water into a basin, and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel wherewith He was girded. Verse 13, Ye call me Master and Lord, and ye say, Well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that ye should do as I have done to you. He also showed His servant's heart when He took time for little people. By little people I mean little in age or stature, as well as little in importance. Mark chapter 10, verses 13-16. And they brought young children to Him, that He should touch them, and His disciples rebuked those that brought them. But when Jesus saw it, He was much displeased, and said unto them, Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of God. Verily I say unto you, whosoever shall not receive the kingdom of God as a little child, he shall not enter therein. And He took them up in His arms, put His hands upon them, and blessed them. Jesus had time for little people. In Luke chapter 18, verses 35-43, He took time for a blind man. The blind man was calling out to Jesus and wanting Him to come and heal him. And the people in the front of the crowd told him to be quiet. They told him Jesus was too busy for him. But Jesus called the man to Him and asked him, What can I do for you? And the man said, I want to see. And Jesus touched him and healed his eyes so he could see. Jesus was a servant. He took time for little people. To be a true servant of Christ, we must begin with faithfulness in little things. Luke 16:10 tells us, He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. And he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much. Most of the time, we want God's big assignments, but we don't want to do the little assignments. Our attitude is, Lord, I'll go on a missions trip, but please, don't ask me to clean the bathroom. Or, I'll be a missionary in Africa, but I sure don't want to babysit my little brothers and sisters. Servanthood requires humility. We want to be greatest, but Christ says, be the least. Matthew 20, verses 26-28. But it shall not be so among you, but whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. And whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give His life a ransom for many. Mark 9:35. And He sat down and called the 12, and saith unto them, If any man desire to be first, the same shall be last of all, and servant of all. I'm going to read to you a list of characteristics of a true servant from the book Making Brothers and Sisters Best Friends by Sarah Malley and her brother and sister. A true servant knows that all assignments are actually from God. A true servant will be quick to volunteer. A true servant will consider his assignment important and will take orders. A true servant does not desire to have authority. A true servant will do what others do not and will not do. And a true servant enjoys meeting needs. A true servant doesn't need recognition and will voluntarily serve without pay. A true servant doesn't seek higher status. The true servant will do more than is required and does not have his own selfish ambitions. A true servant will serve anyone, even those whom others don't like serving. A true servant is willing to be treated like a servant. A true servant does not seek the big and important assignments. A true servant will serve with a joyful attitude and will put his whole heart into each task. A true servant thinks of others before himself. He desires that his master receives the credit and that God receives the glory. Okay, fine. I'll be a servant. But give me an important task. I don't want a worthless task. Have any of you ever wanted to be a trash can? I doubt it. You probably would rather be a china plate. Let me just tell you about this china plate. It sits on our cupboard, and we use it 2, maybe 3 times a year. If this china plate broke, we wouldn't miss it that badly. We hardly ever use it. But this trash can, we use it hundreds of times a day. If we were missing this, we would have a filthy home. We would have a filthy yard. We would breed disease around here. We need this trash can very much. But I don't want to be a trash can. I'd rather be a china plate. But Jesus says, be the least. Do the smallest task, because he sees it as the most important, even more than the china plate. Finally, being a servant starts at home. Oh no! I have to serve my own family? If you can't serve your family, your wonderful Christian testimony is worthless to those you love the most. Do not despise the smallest of assignments. It is hard, but it's very important. Open your eyes. Look around you. There's tasks in your home that need done that you've been ignoring. There's people in your home who need help, who you can serve, that you've been ignoring. Don't be out to serve to get glory and honor for yourself, to be noticed and to be honored, but serve so that Jesus is glorified.